Like one reason I thought it would be funny to do a post like this is because I actually think this is like really going on in the White House. I think that's kind of an underrated part of like what we're experiencing right now, or what the rest of the world is experiencing, which is an administration that's in full like AI psychosis, where they're being advised by a computer that's designed to agree with you and make you feel good about yourself and make you feel good about your decisions, no matter what that decision is. I actually do think that's a underrepresented explanation for what is currently happening. And I fully do think we've talked about how unprepared they were. We've talked about like how they really thought this was going to be easy. Yes, maybe that's just like typical American chauvinist like idiocy. Maybe I really do think they're getting advice, military, and they've openly talked about this. Like there's been a whole thing about like ChatGPT and Claude and all this stuff in the Defense Department, or sort of the Department of War. So they've openly acknowledged that they've been using these LLMs to help plan this attack. And I absolutely do believe that this has been part of the reasoning, like convincing people that they're like not making a catastrophic mistake, because it's literally a computer that's designed to like say pleasing things to you. Because what if the computer said like, no, actually, I don't think it is a good idea to do a war with Iran. Iran's going to be able to fire back, as they've repeatedly said, at all these U.S. military installations. We're currently negotiating with Iran, and if we attack them during negotiations, they're not going to have an incentive to negotiate anymore. There's actually a lot of evidence that they aren't pursuing a nuclear weapon. What happens if Claude says that when you're trying to plan a war? Well, then you go like, to hell with you, Claude. Uninstall. I'm going to stop using it. And it's a machine that's designed, that wants you to keep engaging, right? And if it says something that you're not going to be happy about, you're not going to want to use it. Like it's the fundamental way of like how these machines work. It probably did say that. Then it said, oh, okay, yeah, do it then. Yeah. Maybe that's the reason they're getting rid of Claude. Article from today. U.S. military confirms use of advanced AI tools in war against Iran. I saw, and this is very disturbing, I saw like the release of the first official confirmed casualty of someone that had been targeted by this technology. That's a little alarming, isn't it? That's going to definitely have some far-reaching consequences in the future. I love too how it's everyone else's fault now. It's been absolutely crazy, actually. It's been really crazy, the back and forth and the flip-flopping, and it's going to be forever war. It's going to be over right away. I want to do it. It's decisive. We're going to be attacked. Versus don't get mad at me, it's everyone else's fault. Like it's consistently crazy to me how people in this man's like fan base can see him as this like paragon of like masculinity and toughness when he can't take responsibility for a single thing. It's like he's a child.
The situation was very quickly approaching the point of no return, and the United States found it intolerable, in my opinion, based on what Steve and Jared and Pete and others were telling me, Marco, so involved, that I thought that they were going to attack us. I thought they would, if we didn't do this at the time we did it, I think they had in mind to attack us. And the situation was very...
Also, talking specifically about, so yeah, everyone else advised me. Who's in charge there, sir? Is it you or your advisors? I thought it was supposed to be you. Also, he's talking specifically about Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner is giving him advice to bomb Iran. Jared Kushner, his unelected real estate fail son-in-law. He's apparently giving major advice. And of course, he's part of this board of peace. He seems like he's a central figure in the administration, despite not actually working for the administration in any real way. Mossad asset, Jared Kushner. Here's how like the Steve Bannon wing is talking about it.
We're at war, and we have young men and women in harm's way. So, and like I said, we're in it. I'm not happy that we're in it, but you're in it. So you got to figure out how you have victory, because victory is what matters here. It would be catastrophic for us to not have victory in this. And I realize that may rub some people the wrong way, but I think that's just a hard reality, what we have to deal with. We're at war, and we have...
It's over. There's no victory. If this turns into a long, prolonged thing, no matter what happens to the Iranian military or whatever, it's over. You can't win. It's impossible. There was as I repeatedly keep saying, there was 2 opportunities to declare victory. One, in like the week prior to this, when Iran was offering all these concessions and these negotiations, declare victory then. That was option 1. Option 2 was after the weekend, you bomb the country, You give them a bloody nose, you take out the leadership, and then you pull back and you stop it and you declare victory then. Now, not so sure. Not so sure that that's possible. And as long as that turns into this prolonged, extended thing, that's always going to benefit not just Iran, but any of these less advanced countries or armies that are waging this kind of asymmetrical warfare. It's always going to be to their advantage. As we've been talking about, like just being in that position for too long, you got to resupply, you've got to build new munitions. You know, if they start actually going into the ground, and if I was in the U.S. military right now, I'd be deeply, deeply afraid of that. They're going to get hammered then. It's already over. It's already over. They've lost. According to First Squawk, Iran has threatened to strike the U.S. West Coast with offensive drones in retaliation for American military operations, according to an FBI warning issued to California Police Department's ABC News reports. ABC was reporting FBI say Iran drone attacks 1 hour ago.
ABC News exclusive. The FBI warning police departments across California that Iran could retaliate against the West Coast. This would allegedly be done using drone technology.
ABC News has reviewed the alert from the end of February, and the alert said Iran planned to conduct a surprise attack using unmanned aerial vehicles specifically against California in the event that the U.S. conducted strikes against Iran. The alert did not have any additional information on the timing, method, target, or perpetrators of the alleged attack.
Now, this warning comes as the Trump administration launches more attacks in Iran. ABC's Olivia Rubin is following the overnight strikes.
Today, fire and fury in the Strait of Hormuz. This cargo ship from Thailand on fire. Officials now say 3 crew members are missing, 32 rescued. Several cargo ships in the strait hit by unknown projectiles, according to the British Maritime Authority, Iran claiming responsibility for 2 of those strikes. The strait, a critical passageway for the world's oil supply, now essentially closed.
This is one of the pressure points that Iran knew he could use to really force the United States potentially to stop the conflict. They can do this successfully, they're going to stop 20% of the world's oil supply.
There are reports Iran is planning to use mines to further disrupt the flow of oil.
One interesting thing about this is that they led up front with the completely unsubstantiated fear-mongering about Iranian retaliations in the West Coast, and then shifted to their war coverage of this like disastrous and incredibly unpopular military campaign that they're engaged with. And I don't know if there is some kind of false flag. It's hard to say. Like, I want to think that like probably most people will be like, this is bullshit and I don't believe this. I'm sure there's plenty of people that will. I mean, there's people that believe all kinds of things. But I know a lot of people, it won't be who knows if it'll be a critical mass, but I know a lot of people will be like, absolutely not. No way.
Playing out too. In Tehran, thousands gathering in the streets for officials killed in some of the first strikes of the war.
This is telling too. This is why sometimes it's useful to like look at this like American, local media crap. The fact that they're showing that people are marching in Tehran and elsewhere in support of the government is a pretty big deal, I think, because it's like, I think if they could ignore that or pretend that that wasn't happening, they would do that. The problem is it doesn't matter whether people believe it or not. Yeah, it probably doesn't, but I do still think that it's significant. If you look back at like 9/11, for example, and the way that like the 9/11 conspiracy people were like very fringe and there was this whole concerted effort in the media to never entertain any of these ideas, no matter how credible some of them might have been. And to kind of shunt everything over into this kind of conspiracy theory, crank, tinfoil hat thing. I don't know if it will affect anything, but it will definitely would be very different if there was some kind of attack. And these theories are not going to be so easily dismissed as they were at that time. In fact, they're going to be wildly prevalent from moment one. And will that impact anything that's done as consequence? I don't know, probably not, because clearly they're not swayed too much by public opinion or any of that stuff. But that would be a pretty significant change to how things were, 20, 25 years ago, when they could take this big attack and use that to engage in this entire 20-year war on terror and create all these new bureaucracies and everything. Yeah, they're hardly even trying to manufacture consent anymore, and that's a significant question. Does it matter? I don't know if it does matter. Maybe that's one lesson that they've learned, is that we don't even need to bother with this. That is also one thing I think, though. Most Americans believe Trump launched Iran war to cover up Epstein's scandal. Yeah, it's deeply unpopular. I think one thing that's also true that people have been pointing out is that whoever is in Trump's ear talking about this stuff, they're showing him, and I think the White House even retweeted a poll to this effect, 90% approval. Sir, you're doing great. There's 90% approval to this war. When it's like specifically people that identify as MAGA and completely ignoring the fact that like overall it's extremely unpopular. This becomes problematic too, because like there's elements of this that are true. Like, do they want to have some kind of distraction from the Epstein files? Yeah, I think they do. You know, and this idea that like, oh, we can create this kind of flag waving military situation and get people to stop talking about this. You know, I think there's elements of that are true, but like, I also don't know that we should be going along with this narrative that launching this war has everything to do with Israel and Epstein. It has something to do with it. And as I've talked about a lot, there's obviously a connection between Israel and Epstein and Mossad and blackmail and coercion and all this stuff. That's a very real phenomenon. But like what it has more to do, again, this gets into like the Zog thing where we start blaming every single evil thing that the US government does or the Canadian government does on like Israeli influence. And really going after Iran has more to do with the 79 revolution. And yes, Israel's security concerns are part of that. And the Epstein stuff is part of that. America or any other kind of like imperialist or colonialist power has always targeted and gone after countries and people that engage in revolutions against their puppet dictators that they put in place. You know, that's why Iran's been a target. It hasn't been because exclusively because of Israel and Epstein. Yes, maybe there is other Mossad blackmail operations going on at that time, but like they've been going after Iran since 79 because they overthrew their puppet dictator. This is why they hate any of these countries. Whether it's Cuba, whether it's Venezuela, whether it's Iran, whether it's Haiti, any time that any people overthrow a like reactionary government or dictator that's serving Western interests, that country gets targeted by Western imperialism and sanctions and blockades, invasions, assassinations, propaganda. That has nothing to do with Israel, nothing whatsoever. So this is one case where I'm like, ironically, I'm the one doing the two things can be true thing here, because I think this is one thing we have to keep in mind. Yeah, certainly Israel is part of this story. Obviously. And Epstein and blackmail and distraction stuff, that's an element of this. But the idea that like, oh, Trump is only doing this because of like Epstein distraction or Israel's concerns. I mean, that yes, it's part of that is true, but Iran's been targeted since 79, not because of Israel or Jeffrey Epstein, but because they overthrew a dictator that was backed by America, that was serving Western interests. When we do two things can be true, it's dialectical analysis. Yeah, thank you. It has everything to do with energy and capital flows, which has been true for a couple of 100 years. America's been engaging throughout the world in this way, with military expansionism, economic coercion, backing dictators, overthrowing democracies. They've been doing that since before Israel ever even existed. I think there's a good case for saying U.S.'s support for Israel is partly ideological. I think so too. Like, it's also not quite as simple as Israel is an extension of American military and economic power in that region. There is a little bit more to it going on than that. I don't think that's adequate enough of an analysis to explain this kind of relationship. But it's also not Israel and Netanyahu, the puppeteers controlling the United States government. I don't think that's an accurate way of looking at that. Yeah, like Sleem, you're not wrong. When you say Israel exerts a ton of influence over our government and ruling class, that's obviously observably true. Ideology required to reproduce material relations. Yeah. I mean, I think about that in the context of reading about some of these like CIA dirty wars and reading about some of like in Jakarta method and all this stuff and getting into some of the people that were doing this. Like they're deeply ideological. They're deeply ideological, and they believe that they can that they're simultaneously the good guys and heroes of the world, and they're doing good things. And also, these good things they're doing happen to be the very best things for like American financial and global hegemonic dominance. They fully believe that like these two things worked hand in hand. Of course we're doing the right thing and we're the good guys and we're going after these evil dictators and we're freeing people and spreading democracy. And it just so happens that this benefits all these exact powerful interests, corporate interests in the country, in the military industrial complex and the, Chiquita Banana or the oil companies or whatever it is.